Welcome everyone. In today's video, we're going to try to do something we have never done before. We're going to try to learn from a hack that happened this week. Uber. That's right. We're going to take a look at the Uber breach, and while this is still unfolding, we're going to take a look at what we think we already know, allegedly of course, and we're going to take a look at what actions we could have taken to mitigate that breach. Let's get started. On September 16th, an 18-year-old hacker jumped on the Uber Slack channel to announce he managed to hack Uber. The entire network was probably impacted, including their domain administration, Amazon, vSphere, G Suite, and more. Interestingly, he was on Telegram under the handle TPOTS2022, and he was open to discuss. On Monday the 19th, Uber announced that they believe the hacker was part of the hacking group Lapsus, the famous group that hacked dozens of companies recently, including Microsoft and Okta. So how does an 18-year-old defeat the security of one of the most innovative IT company with an IT budget of over $200 million? Group IB Global, a well-recognized group of cybersecurity leaders based in Singapore, noticed in a screenshot shared by the hacker that they had downloaded two artifacts, two files in the zip archive at the same log format, log ID -4952307 and log ID 4953756. The name format of these files allowed the group to identify them as logs from stealers that were sold on one of the underground marketplaces. So it seems quite clear that these stolen logs were for sale on the dark web and bought by the hacker to get access to these accounts at Uber. These logs were put up for sale on September 12th and 14th, which means that this was very fresh data because the hack that used them was revealed on September 16th. As you can see here, both of these logs contain authorization data for uber.onelogin.com, an identity and access management provider. These logs indicate that at least 2 Uber employees from Indonesia and Brazil have been infected by stealer malware, Raccoon and the Vidar stealer. Thanks to these credentials, the hacker then used social engineering tactics by pretending to be a Uber IT support employee and contacted one of the 2 employees on WhatsApp, asking that person to accept his multi-factor authentication. That employee was a contractor working for Uber. The hacker used a technique called MFA fatigue, where the malicious hacker kept asking again and again to be approved until the employee finally clicked yes. More incredibly, that worked. The user, instead of calling his IT support to report the attempt, just approved the authentication. It seems that the Uber MFA solution, we believe it's Duo, did not have any threshold limitation of volume of requests or alerting, which is really a best practice in the identity management industry, so that attack was allowed and effectively happened. Once the hacker managed to get his device approved, he was able to get access to the Uber's VPN and scan the intranet for services running. He got access to the corporate network, corp.uber.com, and found a network share folder that had various PowerShell scripts in it. In there was a script with hardcoded password in plain text, and that was a crown jewel that the hacker was looking for. A dream come true for a hacker. The hardcoded non-person entity account was not only an administrator account, but a very special one. As you can see here, it was an account called a break glass account, which is only to be used when critical IT systems fail, like complete MFA failure to force authentication and bypass security layers. This is not something you would use on a day-to-day basis for a script. This is really something that should only be used in case of emergency, and that account should have been stored in a physical safe and tightly controlled, but instead was stored in plain text in a PowerShell script widely accessible on the company's network. That account was an administrator credential to Thycotic, the privileged access management solution, PAM, used by Uber. A PAM solution is used to manage privileged access to ensure that they are not used without proper approvals and tracking. Unfortunately, that Thycotic PAM solution had privileged access credentials, secrets, to a vast set of solutions used by Uber, from their domain control to Duo, the MFA solution, to One Login, the identity management solution, to Amazon, to vSphere for VDI, to G Suite, and more. Once a user had admin access to these, it could literally access everything at Uber, from Slack to Confluence to potential companies' confidential data such as billing and PII. None of these access and changes seem to have been detected by the SIEM, and none of that was detected by the continuous monitoring team of Uber. Despite sending dozens of MFA approval, that did not raise a flag with the team. Then the hacker provided evidence of the breach by sharing screenshots, such as this Slack screenshot, this Amazon console screenshot, this vSphere console screenshot, and here you can see the internal billing console of Uber, and here the Sentinel-1, the endpoint protection solution used by Uber, screenshot as well. In a chat, the hacker complained that the Uber bug bounty program with HackerOne, a site specialized in bug bounty, was only $15,000 when Uber spends $2 million on Slack Enterprise and $200 million a year in IT overall. He said he would have done the right thing if the bug bounty wasn't so small. The hacker informed the company on Slack, and the company sent a text notice to all employees informing them of the issue while shutting down Slack as well. So now let's take a look at lessons learned. So many different things happen here to make this possible. So first, it might be interesting for companies to start monitoring the dark web for password leaks and then proactively change those passwords. That's how the hacker initially got into the system, by getting access to passwords of the two employees and then proceeded with MFA fatigue to be approved. So of course, this is why MFA exists. And of course, it's very clear that effectively the employee should never have accepted the request of approval of the MFA solution. But the fact is, if you monitor the dark web, you can then proactively notify the employees to change their password. That's one first option. The second option, of course, is looking at the MFA solution being used, including the settings. Clearly, it should not have been allowed for the malicious actor to keep notifying that user, and that should have raised alerts to the cyber team at Uber to take action. So really, they should have better settings when it comes to MFA approval to prevent someone from spamming and effectively creating this MFA fatigue concept for that MFA approval. Then, of course, we can obviously talk about training on social engineering, and the fact is the employee should have never accepted that someone from the Uber team would reach out to him on WhatsApp, and instead should have alerted the security team that this was happening and change its password, and of course not approve the MFA request. Now, all of this was pretty benign until, of course, the hacker laterally moved from that single account to the administrative account that they managed to get access to. So again, MFA is a great barrier to prevent the hacker from getting a foothold in the system after getting the password. But then again, without the script with a hard-coded break glass account password in there, the malicious actor would have been pretty limited as far as what they could have done, since they would only be able to do what that user was able to do, assuming Uber is using the principle of zero trust and least privilege. Really, without that break glass account access, that would have limited the ability of the malicious actor to move to the crown jewel. So of course, very common sense, you should use solutions to scan for secrets, your source code, and your files to detect potential hard-coded passwords, and you should never have scripts with that kind of hard-coded accounts. Of course, when it comes to break glass account, you want to keep that in a safe and never use that anywhere else. That really is supposed to be used in case of a tremendous emergency, something like the MFA solution is not responding or working or behaving the way it should. That should be very tightly controlled and accessible to only a very limited set of people, and stored in a secure safe. So, of course, when it comes to non-person entity account management, we see it again and again. Malicious actors are targeting CI/CD pipelines, source code repos, and multiple set of tools that have access to different tools. And too often we see bloated accounts when it comes to non-person entity. People forget that the principle of least privilege apply not just to people, but also to systems talking to other systems. And clearly you want to only allow that account the rights that they're supposed to have access to do their jobs in that script, all that capability. So make sure that you do an audit of your NP accounts and that you ensure that the least privilege is enforced across your stack. And of course, people debate about the privileged access management solutions, the PAM access, that effectively gives you access to all of these tools when it comes to privileged access management. And again, it's best practice to use one of those, but it becomes your crown jewel and the single source of truth of that management of access control for privileged access. And if that were to be hacked, of course, then you give access to the entirety of the system. Many new modern PAM solutions have the ability to issue short-lived tokens to use with very limited set of rights, and often with the requirement of an approval by a second person. So that would mitigate that risk of someone getting access to the PAM solution and require effectively that someone else grants access to allow that user to execute a set of tasks during a very limited time frame with a very short-lived certificate. So that's something you probably want to find out if your PAM solution supports that short-lived assignment of tokens, and if not, probably swap to a different solution. Now, of course, no cyber control is always effective fully, and that's why continuous monitoring is so essential. It's pretty surprising that this malicious actor was able to spam with MFA requests that user without alerting a SIEM system to notify the cyber teams of Uber, but also the fact that that same user was able to scan the network and then find that script and then connect to their PAM solution to get access to all these secrets. Clearly, that shows that there was very little monitoring of these tools. And those are the crown jewel tools that enable you to access pretty much everything across the network. So you would want to particularly monitor your PAM solutions, your identity management solution, and of course, be able to have automated alerting to notify the team that something like this is happening. That's kind of your last line of defense, but that's something very important when it comes to an end-to-end cybersecurity stack. Your incident response, of course, will come after that, but you probably want to stop the lateral movement before it gets to that point. So as you can see now, Uber is beefing up their cybersecurity team, and you can find now dozens of job posts on various websites. There you have it. An analysis of the latest Uber breach, what we know, what we could do to prevent it or mitigate that breach. And if you like videos like this one, please let us know and share with your colleagues so we can ensure that our nation and companies are more resilient against attacks like these.